The meeting of the committee as a whole for the Human Resources and Education for St. Tammany Parish School Board of December 5th has now come to order. Ms. Coakley, would you please call the roll?
Mrs. Heinz. Mr. Green.
Here.
Mr. Derman.
Here.
Mr. Loop. Mr. Harrell. Mr. Nation.
Here.
Mrs. Richardson.
Here.
Mr. Winkler.
Here.
Mrs. Drucker. Mr. Bentoncourt.
Here.
Mrs. Lamy.
Here.
Mr. Hersey.
Here.
Mr. Bro.
Here.
Mr. Kuzan.
Here.
Mrs. Page.
Ms.
Thank
Coakley, Ms. Coakley, if I could, Mr. Loop is attending the LSBA meeting tonight, so he would not be here.
Okay, please join us and stand and for the invocation led by Ms. Page, please.
Lord, I thank you for all of your blessings. I thank you for Christmas. I pray you be with us this evening with all of the decisions that we need to make. Give us knowledge and guidance. We ask all these things in Christ's name. Amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Did you? No, I was writing with it. Okay, we move on to recognition of visitors. Do any board members have any visitors they would like to recognize? Seeing none, we move on to public comments. 5 minutes. Juanita Zarang. Ms. Zarang here. Is Ms. Zarang here? Okay, we're going to move on to 3 minutes. Royale, Escamilla.
Roel, Escamilla. Good evening, board members, Mr. Superintendent. I want to talk to you tonight about my experience here with St. Tammany Parish schools. So my first month here, about my second week, I called to set up a observation of my daughter in her classroom and was told that doesn't happen here. That can't happen here. We don't do that here. Now, in November, I found out that's not true. That actually it's required to happen here by your policy. And I asked myself, how is it possible that staff of the school board and principals are under the impression that parents aren't permitted to come and observe their children in the classroom? I send emails. I've sent 2 emails to every single one of the school board members, and only one person responds. And I ask myself, how is it possible that elected officials don't respond to public comments or public questions or inquiries? I send emails to my child's teachers and her principal, and they respond sporadically, sometimes not completely, sometimes combatively, sometimes vaguely. And I ask myself, how is it possible that public school teachers and administrators aren't responding to parents' concerns and questions about the professional capacity of educators? I do all of this because I'm an engaged parent, and I want my child to learn and have the best opportunity and access to education, and I believe that that can happen here in St. Tammany. That's why I live here. That's why I moved here. That's why I chose this parish over all the other parishes I could have moved to. The end result, however, is I leave feeling like there's a lack of transparency and not a focus on actually providing that transparency. When teachers feel personally aggrieved when parents ask them about why things are being taught or how things are being taught. When principals feel personally aggrieved because parents are insisting that they be able to observe their children. When district personnel are saying things that are contrary to policy, you have to ask yourself, how transparent does the board want to be? How engaged does the board want parents to be? And since 2 board members made comment about how important it is that parents be involved and how that's not always possible, I would have expected that the board want the most engagement from parents. As an educator, I know how important that is. As a parent, I know how important that is. And yet, that's not been the reality. What has been the reality is my feeling aggrieved at needing to constantly go to the superintendent's office to try and take care of problems that should be handled at the school level. A teacher should be communicating with parents about assignments and about the behavior of their child, whether that child is in secondary or elementary ed. If my child is creating an environment in a classroom where a teacher feels so aggrieved that they have to leave the room, I should be made aware of that. If my child is showing trends of struggling to learn in a certain classroom and the teacher isn't capable of facilitating the learning in that area, I should be made aware of that. And if my child comes home and says, I really don't want to go to school tomorrow because this teacher or that teacher is going to be present, I should be able to go to the principal and have that conversation and have it immediately addressed, because no child should feel like they're in a toxic environment. Everyone knows that children learn when they feel loved, when they feel welcomed, when they feel actively engaged. And if that's not happening, this board should be looking for parents to be engaged, not setting up barriers for that engagement. Thank you.
Move on to item 3, approval of minutes for the committee as a whole meeting held on November the 7th, 2019. Do I have a motion? Motion by Mr. Green. Second by Mr. Hersey. I'm sorry. Mr. Winkler. Any comments from the board? Any comments from the public? Then let's vote, please.
Yeas, 1 abstention.
We have 12 yeas, 1 abstention. Motion passes. We move on to item 4, human resources. Class size report. Mr. Jabier, please.
Thank you, Mr. Kuzan, members of the board, good evening. I'm here tonight with 3 reports that I normally present at this time each year. The first one being a class size report. For informational little background purposes, a number of years ago, this board took on an initiative to reduce class size, especially in grades K through 3, with trying to get 20 or less in every class. And this is actual class size, it's not a ratio. This only includes the classroom teachers. I'm happy to say that this was a great initiative. It's been mostly appreciated by our community, our parents, our teachers, and I think the kids. So the report tonight, again, a little bit of background information. The State Department issues class size with a maximum in K through 3 of 26, and in grades 4 through 12, the maximum is 33. I'm happy to present to you tonight that all of our classes in K through 3 are under 20. 19.2 in kindergarten, 19.5 in first, 17.6 in second, and 19.9 in third. If you look at the other grades, those are also pretty low overall. You are going to see some in the report that may be or tend to be a little large. There's a number of things that contribute to that. The board said that we would reduce those classes where there was resources available. So that means space and teachers. In some of the schools, there may not be space available for those classes. In other cases, you see a ratio that's very, very low. That's a smaller school, and then maybe they broke the first grade by 5 or 6 students. So if they got 26 in first grade, they're going to get 2 teachers. So you're going to see 13-1 in those. So those are just the way it falls out, but we're very, very pleased with the numbers and with the class size. I'll try to answer any questions if you have. I think the report is pretty self-explanatory.
Thank you, Mr. Jabier. Any comments or questions from the board on the class size report? Then we'll move on to the exit interview report. Mr. Jabier?
Thank you, Mr. Kuzan. On the exit interview, we've been doing this for a number of years. The State Department started requiring us to do this probably 5 or 6 years ago, but we were doing it before then. There are specific questions that we ask according to the state regulations. We do put this information into a computer-based program from the state, and they maintain this information. They don't really give us a lot of feedback from it. We try to look at it and interpret the report as best we can. But very basically, oh, by the way, this is voluntary, so it's anonymous. They don't have to put their names. Some may put their names on it, but most do not. Again, it's not mandatory, so for that reason, you'll see in this particular year, we had 140 resignations that we sent an exit interview questionnaire to them, but only 42 responded. And out of those 42, they answered the questions up above, positive response of 348, which is about 92% positive response. Also, at the top of the report, it gives you a lot of the reasons that they're leaving us. As you can see, moving and personal or other family obligations, relocating, child rearing, et cetera, that's where your largest number is. But this report has been pretty well consistent from year to year. Last year, I think we had about 91% positive. We had, let's see, it's on here, 53 out of 149 questionnaires that were returned. Okay, so that's about 30% or so. So it's been falling in that range. I wish we could do better. We do look at it. We try to see if there's a trend of any type, and we go from there. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Do we have any questions from the board on the exit report by Mr. Jabier? Okay, Mr. Green is first. See, I recognize his hand first, Mr. Green.
He's raising his hand for her.
Okay, all right.
Thank you, Mr. Green. I wanted to ask, do we ever do that for transfers? When people want to transfer, like go to transfer fair, do we ever get a questionnaire of, like, is it because they're moving, or is it because of issues in the school, or anything like that? Not
No,
really. I was just
no.
curious.
Yeah, we try not to ask. We just,
Yeah.
if they want to transfer and they want to leave,
Let 'em do
they're
it,
they're
yeah.
more than welcome to go to transfer fair.
Okay, I was just curious. Thank you.
Sure.
Any other board member? Okay, then we'll move on to the resignation report, Mr. Jabier.
Thank you, Mr. Kuzan. Again, my final report is a resignation report, and this is just for informational purposes. You can see a few years ago, we started, I do this for 5 years running. The last 2 years have been pretty consistent. You see 140 resignations this year, 149 the year before. We also look for trends to see if this one school, does it have a pattern of a lot of people resigning? And I just don't find that. I think a lot of people resign for a lot of different reasons. And again, these are resignations, these are not retirements. So these are people that are just terminating and leaving the system for whatever reason it is, okay? Again, it's pretty self-explanatory, but just a report that a number of years ago, the board wanted to see this each year.
Any questions on the exit report, the resignation report from Mr. Jabier by any board member? Okay, Ms. Nation?
Thank you, Mr. Kuzan. Mr. Jabier, remind us how many, well, first let me ask that resignation, these are of certificated personnel, correct?
These are teachers, yes, sir.
And how many active teachers do we have?
About 3,200.
Okay, I was trying to get a percentage, so I mean, it's a low percentage of,
Right.
I mean, it's not, it's,
And we have anywhere from 7 to 8% turnover. And
Yes.
that number's been pretty consistent over the last few years.
right. Thank you.
Sure.
Anyone else? Mr. Jabier, thank you for your report.
Thank you.
We appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Thank
We'll
you.
move on to item number 5, instruction. High School Teaching Academy presentation, Ms. Dangerfield.
Superintendent Faust and board members. Tonight, I will share information with you about a program that is very near and dear to my heart. It is with our very own high school students. They are committed to building relationships with kids, even though they are just students themselves. They are committed to making a difference in our community. Who are these fabulous high school students, you may ask? Well, of course, they are students who are interested in becoming teachers. They have stepped to the plate to make other careers possible. In St. Tammany, we believe in growing our own teachers. We plant seeds by sharing curriculum components with our high school students. We water those seeds with the internship programs that we have with our very own schools. And we fertilize the seeds with additional professional development where we continue to motivate and encourage our students while they're on their journey so they will come home to teach. Let's take a look at some highlights from our program. Our High School Teaching Academy. This program provides an excellent opportunity for our students to build a foundation in the teaching profession. How? Curriculum in the classroom setting, working with one of our high school teachers. Participation in internships, once again in our schools, working with our teachers, serving as mentors. And it doesn't stop there. We give them continuing professional development. The program builds on foundations of education for success. In the classroom, the students are introduced to theories of education, history, and principles. In addition, they learn about their own self-awareness, self-esteem, how they best learn themselves as students, those interpersonal skills about how you communicate best with others, lesson planning. Any great teacher will let you know that lesson planning is key. Learning styles. When you know how your students learn best, that makes lesson planning all that much easier for you. And when you know how your students learn best, you can pick those activities and develop them to meet the needs of all of your students. Internships. Students have the opportunities to participate in internships. We're talking about high school students interning in education in high school. Hands-on experience, real life experiences. They get to put that theory from the classroom into practice. Participants, they have an opportunity to tutor students, and some of them actually teach the younger students while they are under their mentor teachers who are mentoring them in their classrooms. And yes, our annual STAR Conference, where we have lots of fun, and this year was no different. What do teachers do when they go to a conference? They attend sessions, they have a luncheon, they eat, and they learn. Well, what did our future teachers do? They attended sessions, they had a luncheon with the speaker, they ate, and they learned. Well, our theme, our future teachers are stars, where we put our stars to the test at the Teaching Academy Conference. We started that morning off with collaboration, collaborating in groups on different topics. But after that, it was time for their sessions. But we just didn't tell them where to go. We started the St. Tammany version of The Amazing Race. Each group was given a clue, and they had to solve the clue to determine where to go and what session they were going to go to. And they did that for each of the sessions. Some of the sessions included Internet Scavenger Hunt for college and employment information. And don't worry, Mr. Jabbia, all of the employment information was about St. Tammany. Breakout EDU was another session, a science activity. And even in high school, they participated in a mock PLC meeting. And last but definitely not least, a recruitment video. See, They think it's easy for Miss Menard to stand in front of Channel 13, but they soon learned it wasn't that easy when they had to do it themselves. Through our Teaching Academy program, we're definitely growing our own teachers. Currently, we have approximately 123 of our employees who participated in the high school teaching academies when they were in high school themselves. On an average, they have been teaching for 7 years in the district, but most of them have been working for us far longer than 7 years. That means when we recruit them to come back, when we grow our own, they want to stay at home and work for us. In addition to that, in the past 5 years, approximately 300 high school students have participated in our Teaching Academy program. See, we plant the seed by introducing them to curriculum in high school. We water that seed by allowing them to get hands-on experience in our own schools where we can mentor them. And we fertilize it by our STAR Teaching Academy. And with all of that, we want to nurture and encourage so they'll come home, plant roots, and teach for us. Let's take a look at a video that Channel 13 put together for us where we will see our high school teaching academy in action. Our high school teaching academy consists of different components. One component is STAR. STAR stands for Students, Teaching, and Reaching. That's the actual curriculum. It's provided to us by the State Department of Education. Students are in the classroom with a high school teacher, and they're actually learning curriculum, lesson planning, they're learning the foundations of becoming a teacher.
So each group has an artifact box in the middle of your table.
Another component includes the internship. That's where our students are actually partnered with one of our schools in the district. They go there, they get actual hands-on experience in a classroom with a mentor teacher at different grade levels.
I saw a lot of value in the teaching internship program. I think my favorite part was being able to get a lot of experience early on before even going to college, and it was really able to solidify for me that I wanted to be a teacher because I got to try it out and I got to really experience what a real classroom is like and working with real students.
I actually like to learn a lot about the students and how they learn individually and also how they work with one another in the class. Escribe lo que los subjectos de. So in this class we have a lot of people from different socioeconomic backgrounds and also different ethnic backgrounds. And we also have some kids who don't speak English or are hearing impaired. So I think it's really interesting how they all get to work together and they all get along within the classroom.
Another component, as we all know, is our STAR Teaching Academy Conference. The STAR Conference is all about professional development. We want to engage and we want to motivate those who are interested in becoming teachers. We want to give them an overall day and life of being a teacher.
The STAR Conference was very valuable. I was able to get a lot of information and see a lot of other people that were aspiring to be teachers, and we were all able to meet together and talk together and share why we wanted to become a teacher.
So the ultimate goal is for us to plant those seeds at an early age with the hope that they will come back home and teach for us.
Okay, we're about to start our learning stations this morning. I'm very grateful that the school system encouraged me and a bunch of others to become a teacher, and I really value the STAR opportunity because it was my first ever teaching experience.
It was really interesting seeing everyone else who wanted to do a similar or exactly the same career path, and I think it was interesting to see how the St. Tammany Parish School Board kind of facilitates that.
We generated some excitement, we encouraged, and we motivated. They went away to school, they majored in education, and they came back home to help us continue the great legacy of educators within our school system.
I graduated from Lakeshore High School. I have a picture on my desk of me when I was in first grade when I went to Magnolia Trace Elementary, and my students just love seeing the picture of me on my desk and seeing that I was in first grade at one point like them, and that I grew up, graduated, and became a teacher, became their teacher.
So at this time, I'd like to introduce to you those fabulous high school students who will help us continue our great legacy of educators in St. Tammany Parish. So the students who have joined us tonight, would you please stand at this time to be recognized? Thank you, students, for selecting the best career ever. It could not be possible without the help of our sponsors and teachers. So our sponsors and teachers, if you are here, would you please stand? We, of course, have administrators who came out to support our teachers and students. So could you please stand at this time? And we do have a representative from Southeastern who came, Ms. Beth Berry. She was invited by one of our teachers. She came to support our high school interns. Ms. Berry. And if we have any parents who are here tonight supporting, would you please stand? See, they're independent already. And tonight's presentation was definitely a team effort. I'd like to thank Channel 13, our communications department, our CNI department, and Ms. LeMaine for her leadership. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheila. That was an excellent presentation. Do we have any questions or comments from the board members? Mr.
Thank you, Mr. Kuzan. Ms. Dangerfield, just out of curiosity, what grade level, is it just seniors, or what's the entry level into this program for our students?
Juniors and seniors.
Juniors and seniors?
Yes.
So, and we've had over 300 in the last 5 years.
Correct.
And we've been able to recruit back roughly 123, I guess he said, over the last 7 years, I think is what you said.
Correct.
So it's actually a pretty good rate of return, I guess, if you look at the investment on it from our perspective, and actually letting our young students get a feel for becoming an educator, which is important for us. And I just think that when we look at it as a business and we look at return on investment, this is a great, great program for us to grow our own. So thank you.
Thank you. We agree.
Mine is more of a comment. I want to thank you all for doing it. I see some familiar faces from when I was a teacher, and it's exciting. But I got to be a mentor teacher with the Teaching Academy under Miss Minetta for 16 years. And I'm just going to say that my boys are in second grade, and their teacher this year was my Teaching Academy intern, my third year teaching. And so it's really exciting, and I have several that are in our system, and so it's really rewarding for the teacher also, the cooperating teacher. And believe it or not, we learn so much from our interns. So it's really exciting, and I just want to encourage you, because I'm sure you hear all of the time, do you really want to be a teacher? Why would you want to be a teacher? I mean, how many times a day do you hear that, right? So be strong, because it is the best. And there were several students, my interns, that decided not to become teachers, and they were very grateful for that opportunity. And I've stayed in contact with many of them, and it saves students from going to college for 4 years and getting a job and thinking, like, teaching is not just a job. It has to be a passion. And so there's just so many good sides to it. So congratulations to y'all, and keep up the good work to all the mentor teachers.
Mr. Winkler?
Yeah, Ms. Dangerfield, you've always done a good job with this. The question I have they've changed, because this was not one of the accreditation certifications. So kids had to, these days they have to get, if they're not on the college track, or they don't have a lot of room for electives.
Correct.
So these kids got to move their schedules around just to get the class they need for going to be a teacher. So have they changed that any? From what I understand, they're going to make it even harder for these kids to take this class, or a number of classes that can help them in this career When in other areas, you know, they have to take several courses in, like if they're going ProStart, they have to, you know, they have to get certifications in Microsoft. If you're going the welding track, that takes 2 years so that you're still kind of working towards being a teacher, and you're at a disadvantage with the way the Bessie Board's kind of got this lined up, and it's still like that, right?
That is correct.
So that just makes it that much
More
more
difficult.
difficult and more impressive that these kids are going that direction anyway.
Correct. We have to be creative with the way we motivate and encourage because it is set up that way.
Well, hopefully they'll put us in there, and, because I know a lot of good people come out of this program. And
Thank
thank
you.
you for all your efforts with it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Winkler. And Ms. Dangerfield, once again, very excellent presentation.
Thank you.
And now, with no other further business to come before this committee, this meeting is adjourned.